What breaks a person is rarely a single moment. It is the long accumulation of quiet hurts, the nights spent alone with thoughts that echo, the looks that slide past you as if you were air, the feeling that your story moves no one. That is why millions recognized a piece of themselves in Arthur Fleck. Not because he is monstrous, but because he is human in his loneliness. We relate to the man who laughs when he means to breathe, to the person who shows up, tries again, and still finds doors closing. Loneliness is not just absence of company. It is the presence of yearning without response. It is leaving a party feeling more alone than when you entered. It is performing kindnesses that no one names, working a job where your existence is a blur, walking through a city that never once turns to say, "I see you." There is the sting of being misunderstood, the joke that lands wrong, the story that fails to persuade, the worry that if you spoke the truth of how tired you are, you would burden everyone. Social rejection does not always arrive as cruelty. Often it's delivered as silence, a conversation that moves on without you, a text not returned, a colleague who takes your idea and receives the praise. Each moment feels reasonable on its own. Together, they carve an emptiness. Many viewers recognized Arthur's emotional isolation, the tiny apartment that holds too much noise, the commute that feels like a tunnel with no end, the failed exchanges that remind him he is a stranger to the world around him. In our lives, it looks like the barista who remembers the order but not the face, the school hallway where a shy student drifts against the lockers, headphones on, heartbeat loud, the office where the kindest person begins to talk less because speaking rarely changes anything. We related because we know that attention is not vanity. It is oxygen. To be witnessed is to be anchored to reality. Without it, a person starts to float, still present but untethered. Arthur's laughter is a symptom, but the illness is neglect. He is not greeted. He is absorbed into the wallpaper. The terror of Joker is not in the paint on the face. It is in the possibility that someone as ordinary as us could vanish in plain sight and, in that vanishing, become someone unrecognizable. Hold on this. He is frightening not because he is different, but because the pain is familiar. Each of us knows a day that felt too quiet, a room that felt too cold, a joke that didn't land, and a bus ride where no one made room. We watch Arthur and whisper, maybe not out loud, maybe not even to ourselves, "I know that ache." What breaks a person is rarely a single moment. It is the long accumulation of quiet hurts, the nights spent alone with thoughts that echo, the looks that slide past you as if you were air, the feeling that your story moves no one. That is why millions recognized a piece of themselves in Arthur Fleck. Not because he is monstrous, but because he is human in his loneliness. We relate to the man who laughs when he means to breathe, to the person who shows up, tries again, and still finds doors closing. Loneliness is not just absence of company, it is the presence of yearning without response. It is leaving a party feeling more alone than when you entered. It is performing kindnesses that no one names, working a job where your existence is a blur, walking through a city that never once turns to say, "I see you." There is the sting of being misunderstood, the joke that lands wrong, the story that fails to persuade, the worry that if you spoke the truth of how tired you are, you would burden everyone. Social rejection does not always arrive as cruelty. Often it's delivered as silence, a conversation that moves on without you, a text not returned, a colleague who takes your idea and receives the praise. Each moment feels reasonable on its own. Together, they carve an emptiness. Many viewers recognized Arthur's emotional isolation, the tiny apartment that holds too much noise, the commute that feels like a tunnel with no end, the failed exchanges that remind him he is a stranger to the world around him. in our lives, it looks like the barista who remembers the order but not the face. The school hallway where a shy student drifts against the lockers, headphones on, heartbeat loud. The office where the kindest person begins to talk less because speaking rarely changes anything. We related because we know that attention is not vanity, it is oxygen. To be witnessed is to be anchored to reality. Without it, a person starts to float, still present but untethered. Arthur's laughter is a symptom, but the illness is neglect. He is not greeted. He is absorbed into the wallpaper. The terror of Joker is not in the paint on the face. It is in the possibility that someone as ordinary as us could vanish in plain sight and, in that vanishing, become someone unrecognizable. The psychology of invisibility begins with recognition, a basic human need. Infants search for faces, children look for nods. Adults ask with every word and gesture, "Do I matter to you?" Validation is not flattery. It is the mirror that tells us, you exist and your existence carries weight. When that mirror is missing, people do not simply feel sad. They begin to doubt the edges of who they are. Belonging is the architecture of the self. Social acceptance builds the hallways we walk through. It gives names to the rooms of our identity: friend, parent, partner, colleague, neighbor. When the doors to those rooms stay closed, emotional neglect settles like dust. You can live in neglect for years and call it normal, because neglect is not an event. It is an absence stretched across time. Psychologists describe how chronic invalidation narrows attention to threat. You scan faces for danger rather than welcome. You hear criticism in neutral tones. You interpret silence as judgment. Over time, your nervous system learns that the world will not catch you, so you stop taking steps where you might fall. You speak less. You try less. You risk less. And in that shrinking, you become less visible still. Consider the employee who delivers careful work but is praised only when a crisis erupts, and the parent who listens attentively but is told they are overly sensitive when they express hurt. The teenager who posts receives no responses and decides to be louder or to vanish. Humans adapt to survive. We withdraw to avoid pain, or we become dramatic to be noticed. Either way, the goal is the same: to feel real in the eyes of others. Recognition heals because it regulates. A name spoken with warmth lowers the heart rate. A hand on the shoulder steadies breath. A text that says, "Thinking of you," rewrites a day. None of these gestures fix complex lives, but they tell the brain a vital story. You are held in a web of eyes and minds. Arthur's world denies him that story. His efforts to belong become echoes, and the echoes don't answer back. Humiliation is the wound that teaches a person to fear exposure. It does not merely hurt, it rearranges behavior. After enough public failures, you begin to pre-reject yourself, pulling away before others can. Rejection becomes expected. You come to every interaction already braced for the moment you'll be dismissed. Hope itself feels dangerous, because hope has betrayed you before. Hopelessness is heavier than sadness. Sadness still imagines a tomorrow. Hopelessness does not. Long-term emotional pain changes personality like water-shaped stone, gradually, relentlessly. Laughter becomes a mask. Politeness becomes armor. People say, "You seem fine," and you nod, because explaining would take too long and you suspect they would look away before you finished. Arthur carries this architecture of pain. He wants to perform, to be liked, to make others laugh, but the stage keeps collapsing under his feet. Every failed attempt confirms a script. You are not wanted. Over months and years, that script becomes identity, not a belief you hold, but a story that holds you. When the world offers no audience, the mind writes a harsher show. If I cannot be loved, let me at least be impossible to ignore. Many of us know gentler versions of this arc. The student mispronounces a word and is teased. The next semester, participation drops to 0. The friend cracks a joke that dies. For weeks, they are quieter. The worker asks for feedback, receives sarcasm. They stop offering ideas. Personality, then, is not only trait, it is adaptation. And when adaptation calcifies around injury, people can appear colder, stranger, harder. Inside, they are simply tired of bleeding where no one can see. Rejection breeds anger because it violates a sacred expectation that a human voice should make ripples in other human lives. When your words enter the room and nothing changes, a pressure builds. At first, the pressure folds inward, resentment, then bitterness, then a turning away. But anger is also a protest, a last flare of the self refusing to disappear. Emotional withdrawal is not laziness. It is physics. If every approach is punished, the organism retreats. If every confession is met with discomfort, the heart closes. Over time, isolation becomes both shield and trap. You are safe from new injury, but you are also starved of new care. From the outside, withdrawal looks cold. From the inside, it feels like survival. In Arthur's arc, this pressure finally seeks expression. The world that ignored him cannot be appealed to. It must be forced to look. We are not excusing harm. We are tracing its roots. The transformation from quiet suffering to visible fury is not mysterious. It is predictable when the inputs are neglect, humiliation, and public dismissal. When empathy fails systemically, anger recruits what empathy could not. Attention. Consider the commuter who is jostled daily, the worker belittled by a manager, the person mocked online by strangers. Most endure without breaking, but a minority, primed by history and stress, will look for a way to feel powerful again. Some choose growth, some choose destruction. Society does not choose for them, but it writes the menu of options. We like to think outcasts are born at the edges. More often, they are pushed there. A society becomes complicit, not through one dramatic act, but through millions of small abdications. We do not greet the janitor by name. We scroll past a friend's long post because we do not know what to say. We cut mental health budgets, praise self-reliance, call exhaustion grit. The message is clear: carry yourself. Modern life offers connection without presence. We live in neighborhoods where we know the brand of our neighbor's car, but not the name of their child. The loneliness epidemic is not only a feeling, it shows up in health data. Higher mortality risk, poorer sleep, greater inflammation. A body kept far from other bodies becomes more afraid. Fear shortens tempers. Tempers shorten futures. Social exclusion often hides in bureaucracy. A form too complex, a waiting list too long, a transit map that deserts certain streets after dark. It hides in algorithms that serve us the familiar until the unfamiliar feels like a threat. It hides in jokes we call harmless and in glances we don't notice ourselves giving. Arthur's city is an exaggeration, but it is not a fantasy. Many towns have a block where the bus stops, lest the lights fail more and the police arrive slower. And yet, if systems can alienate, systems can welcome. A school that trains students to introduce themselves to the quiet kid changes 2 lives in a hallway. A clinic that follows up on missed appointments says, "Your absence mattered." A city that keeps benches in parks says, "We expect you to linger." The opposite of exclusion is not tolerance, it is hospitality, designing the world so that people cannot fall through it unseen. From a distance, change looks like a jump cut. Up close, it's a crossfade. What seems sudden is usually the final frame of a long dissolve. Identity collapses when the stories that once held us. I'm a good son, a decent worker, someone who makes people laugh, stop getting echoed back. Without reflection, even a true sentence loosens. What arrives first isn't malice, it's silence. Then a question that won't leave. Who am I now? Breaking points are thresholds, not explosions. Stress stacks like water behind a dam. Unpaid bills, one rude shove, a voicemail not returned, a door that doesn't open. The rupture is loud, the stacking was quiet. Purpose dries up before the fire ever shows. Morning asks its simple question, for what? And no answer comes. For Arthur, the paint hardens into a uniform. It says, notice this, since you would not notice the man beneath. Inversion becomes the logic. If soft vanished me, try sharp. If polite erased me, try spectacle. Not a defense, an anatomy. Many who stand at this edge find mentors, communities, therapy, and rebuild the bridge back. Others reach for a mask that loans the feeling of invulnerability. Masks work, until they don't. They keep the rain off, but they also keep the light out. The psychology is practical. Most of us need 3 anchors to stay whole. Someone who knows our story, a role that feels useful, a horizon to move toward. Remove all 3 and even sturdy identities fray. Restore one, and the weave can begin again. So the transformation isn't magic. It's arithmetic. Subtractions of recognition, additions of pressure, multiplied by isolation. And then one day, a sum that tips. If a city can push a person toward a mask, a city can also hand back a mirror. The pivot is possible, in either direction. We live in a validation economy. Likes, views, comments, promise to measure worth, but the scale keeps changing. You can be seen by thousands and still not feel understood by one. Social media magnifies visibility. Social media magnifies invisibility. The crowd looks few listen. Comparison becomes a daily ritual. Inadequacy becomes background noise. Modern loneliness is not the absence of contact, it is the absence of depth. We maintain dozens of lightweight ties, we starve for ties that hold our heaviest truths. Joker resonates as a caution attention. Without compassion is gasoline without a lamp. It burns hot and leaves darkness. Validation culture punishes imperfection. The stumble is archived. The awkward laugh becomes a meme. Nuance is lost to speed. If you already feel fragile, public shaming makes authentic connection feel too risky. We curate, we armor up, we polish the edges. Many are aching for one unedited conversation. Yet there is hope. Communities teach listening as a craft. Digital spaces welcome long paragraphs, people answer, not react. Arthur's lesson: don't fear the visible, invest in the relational. We don't need everyone to love us, we need a few people to know us. If a city can push someone toward a mask, it can also hand back a mirror. Close the app. Open the room. Find the voices that know your name and learn to know theirs. Joker is not frightening because he is different. He is frightening because his pain is familiar. We do not excuse the harm. We recognize the path that led there, so we can build better roads. If loneliness is the silent epidemic, then recognition is the quiet medicine. If invisibility can warp a soul, then attention, steady, ordinary patient, can help it unfold again. Tonight, consider the people at the edges of your life. The neighbor whose name you still don't know. The coworker who stopped speaking up. The friend whose messages have grown shorter. Consider the version of yourself at the window, wondering if anyone is looking back. What would it mean to notice, to greet, to ask, to stay? A society is measured by the fates of its most invisible members. The question is not whether we can prevent every tragedy. The question is whether we will keep building a world where people have to set themselves on fire just to be seen in the dark. Close the app, open the room, turn toward the light, and share it.